2005 gave us the clearly influenced by Tarantino's Kill Bill movie, Killing Cupid, also known as Warrior or Assassin. This one is directed and co-written by Michael Worth, who also stars and produces the movie, and stars Jenya, Lano, Lorenzo Lamas, obviously Mike Worth himself, and Jeff Fahey. And the story is a kind of a B-movie version of Kill Bill in a lot of ways. It focuses on Jenya Lano's character Valenitine, who is an assassin who was kind of brought up by Jeff Fahey, who is kind of like this head of this assassin's guild, but she wants out of the life. And there's also a subplot involving this Cupid character who is also an assassin who is kind of turned against his own kind. And both these stories all can kind of converge as we have a group of assassins wanting to kill both Valentine and Cupid, and this will all happen in lots of gun battles and kung fu battles. And there you go. So this movie is very self-referential with kung fu and kind of martial arts B-movies. There's lots of kind of name drops of Shaw Brothers, Bruce Lee, things like this. So if you are a fan of Asian cinema and kind of the more B sort of side of it, there's lots to kind of pick apart in regards to some of the Easter eggs and kind of references here. So clearly some reverence for those kind of movies. First of all, let's talk about what works in this film. This movie does have some decent martial arts fight scenes. Obviously, people who are involved here are clearly well-trained martial artists, and we've actually seen them make a few films together. They've recently reviewed one called Ghost Rock, and it's practically the same cast and crew for this film. But there's no denying that these guys can throw down and make it look good on screen. There are some well-choreographed fights within the movie. Certainly in regards to the martial arts side of stuff. I think there are some stylistic choices here that are clearly, as I say, influenced, or we call it Tarantino-esque, certainly in regards to his Kill Bill films, that make it, you know, try to have somewhat of its own flavour and be this kind of like cult style B-movie version of those Tarantino films. I don't think it works, to be honest, and we'll talk about that again in a bit, but nonetheless there is some interesting stylistic choices here, and I do like the kind of the hyper-realistic sort of thing of these super sexy assassin babes, you know, all with kind of martial arts skills and things like that, and it's all sort of like everyone's kind of over-exaggerated to give it kind of a fun, kind of schlocky B-movie feel. And as I've said, some of these kind of references are quite fun to listen to as well. However, that being said, let's talk about maybe what doesn't work. This film is just so, like, derivative of Kill Bill specifically, but Tarantino-esque as a kind of a wider film influence. It just feels like a really pale imitation, unfortunately. And the stylistic choices here, although, you know, somewhat interesting in regards to visual aspects, just don't feel as earnest, and they just feel like they are a copy rather than kind of someone having their own voice. It just feels like, you know, someone trying to do it because they were a fan of what they've seen before and not really trying to build upon it. The acting is really bad, unfortunately, in this movie. Some of the acting here is just eye-wateringly bad, unfortunately. There's way too many characters. The actual plot itself is just all over the place. Very much like Ghost Rock, actually. It's a film, again, I've reviewed recently. The plot of that was just nonsensical, and I think it's true of this one. I think part of the reason for that is it's kind of, it trips over, it's trying to be this kind of stylish B-movie kind of kung fu mashup, but it really just kind of messes the narrative up to make it so it's quite, quite convoluted in a lot of ways, and it's not helped by some really kind of stilted performances. In regard to the action scenes, the gun battles are just embarrassingly bad. So the kung fu, the martial arts, the hand-to-hand combat, that is filmed well and well choreographed, but other types of combat, unfortunately, are kind of poorly handled. There's some really kind of bad technical elements in this movie as well. For example, the sound mixing is quite poor. Quite often we'll hear a lot of ambient noise in the background, things like roads going by, you know, with traffic from the roads when people are talking, things like that. There's some poor editing choices. The movie just feels like it was thrown together. Now, this Michael Worth, actually, this is his first movie as a director. He's gone on to do many more. So if maybe, obviously, first time trying to maybe overexert himself to some degree, but Michael Worth himself obviously injects himself as to the kind of like the badass sort of character in this movie. It does feel like somewhat of a vanity project, if I'm completely honest with you. Some of the characters are more memorable than others. I think Jenya Lano does quite a good job, although she has surprisingly less screen time than I was expecting, considering she's kind of like the main protagonist to a certain degree. But that's the problem, because there's so many characters here, you really don't know who you're meant to be following, and characters will just kind of pop up randomly, and then you kind of expected to have some kind of reaction for it. Overall, this is a sloppily made film that doesn't really have a hell of a lot of redeeming features, to be honest. Like I've said, if you're a big fan of you know, kind of like the B-movie sort of kung fu style stuff, and all the less kind of mainstream kung fu movies, or some, maybe some of them are obviously, but yeah, there are a couple of nods here, but I don't know if it's worth sitting through this movie for it. This movie was actually kind of quite hard to watch, if I'm honest, and I like action movies. You know, I'm a bit of a fan of Jenya Lano, but god damn, this was a pretty painful watch, to be honest. It's probably a film not a lot of people have heard about, even though this came out in 2005. There's very little kind of like reviews and stuff about it. But I thought this was quite poor, to be honest. It's probably not worth a watch unless you just are interested in seeing someone try to take on a Tarantino-esque version of a B-movie Kill Bill. Because the story does have some similarities in a lot of ways. But to be honest, this one was not particularly interesting, and not particularly well-made film or well-acted. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? Have you heard of it? Would you watch it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.